my goals for this hour is I want to inspire you a little bit about problem solving. I want to encourage you to think a little differently maybe about problem solving, and I want to give you insights into a real-world problem that you're familiar with. So if we're going to work on a real-world problem, we need you to have a couple in mind. So what I'd like you to do is think of 3 problems that interest you. Could be professional problems, something you're wrestling with at home. Could be a global problem. Could be, I had one lady who was volunteer for the SPCA, and her problem was she wanted to figure out how she could encourage people to spay and neuter their pets. Pick 3 things, and I want to encourage you, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, and write down about a 12-word description of each problem. And writing these down is actually kind of important. It's going to help you spot fuzziness and refine the definition as we go along. If you're in a group participating in the webinar, I encourage you to keep your description private for right now. You might choose to share it later, but you might want to rework it first, or you need to have permission to keep it private. So we're going to wait 3 minutes right now so you can do that. Just jot down 3 problems you're wrestling with, at least 3. I encourage you to have one. It gives some place to get traction for what we're going to talk about. So I'll pause now and hum some music. La, da, 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 da. It gets more exciting after this, I promise. Two minutes left. I see you out there in Belgium not writing this down. Seriously, write it down. You'll like it better. Give you a minute more. If you only get 2, I'll never know. But please write down 1 or 2 problems that you think are interesting and engage you so we can apply some of the stuff to them. Okay, let's talk a little bit about problem solving. Where do we learn problem solving? Where do we learn problem solving? I was walking through an underground parking structure about a year ago, and it was kind of dark. It was a basement kind of a parking structure, and I heard this child screech, just ear-piercing screech. Like any other parent on the line, I immediately went into alert, wanted to make sure there wasn't a kid in distress, and I'm looking around, it was echoing, so it was kind of hard to see what was going on. And a minute later, I heard another screech, and I recognized from the second one, this wasn't distress. It was just a little kid going, ah! And then I heard a woman speaking in a really calm voice, and then there was another screech. And so I kind of headed in that direction to make sure everything was okay. And as I walked by, I realized there was a child about 2, and he was learning about acoustics. I figured what happened is he probably slammed the car door and heard a strange variation of the slam that he was used to hearing when he slammed the door. And so he started exploring that strange variation. And it was great because his mom was patiently unloading the car, getting the stroller out and stuff, and talking to him very calmly. And it made me so happy. It made me smile. Because I think young children exploring their world are just fascinating. And now that I've retired from my role as dad, and I get to be the amateur anthropologist uncle and grandpa, I just love little humans, man. They're natural explorers and problem solvers. So where do we learn problem solving? We learn some things in the real world through exploration and trial and error. That's what was going on in the exploration is what was going on in that parking structure. You know, the cookies are high on the counter, out of reach. I want the cookies. This is a problem. I'm trying to figure out how can I reduce the difference between me and the cookies. If I climb on the chair, it helps me reach the cookies. The chair is near the table, and I can move it. So if I move the chair and climb on it, I can reach the cookies. If you watch a 2-year-old, if you just sit to the side, sip a Coke, and watch a 2-year-old navigating the world, you are going to see raw problem solving in action, raw and unfiltered. We learn some things by watching others solve problems. Parents are often surprised how quickly their 18-month-old learns to move the chair. He learns to do it faster than his brothers and sisters. Likely, he's learning it from his older brothers and sisters, watching to see what they do, and then they get to apply that learning going forward. Chimps learn tool making from other chimps. We learn some general purpose solutions or tactics, and we learn to apply them more broadly. If you're into playing strategy games, you'll recognize there's carryover from one game to another. There's patterns. Living creatures are natural problem solvers. You know, seagulls drop shellfish on rocks to break them open. Children learn that standing on a chair may not make them tall enough to reach the apples in the tree, but standing on a chair might help them reach the apples with a rake. Humans are learning machines. Think about that. That is our superpower. We aren't the fastest creatures. We can't fly. We can't swim long distances. We can't swim very well. Our eyesight, our hearing, our sense of smell don't distinguish us. Our teeth and our claws aren't particularly fearsome. What put us on top from an evolutionary standpoint is that we learn. We are wired to recognize and infer cause and effect. A toddler with a hammer learns that it can affect its environment more with a hammer than it can with its hand. What's interesting is that you can learn a lot by watching a toddler, but by age 10, learning and problem solving seems to taper off in a lot of children. Why is that? Well, we can be discouraged. We can unlearn problem solving. There's an apocryphal physics story, so if you'll bear with me, it's a great story if you haven't heard it, and if you had, it's still a good story. So there's a physics exam at college, and the exam question is, using a barometer, how would you determine the height of the physics building? This one student answered, I'd take the barometer to the top of the building, attach a long rope to it, lower the barometer to the street, and then bring it up, measuring the length of the rope. Length of the rope equals the height of the building. And the professor was kind of grumpy at the smarty pants answer and awarded 0 points, saying, look, that's technically correct, but it didn't demonstrate a knowledge of physics. The student protested, and they agreed that he was going to retake the exam with a neutral third party, a different physics professor. So the neutral third party gives the student 6 minutes to answer the question with a warning that the answer should demonstrate a knowledge of physics. At the end of 5 minutes, the student hasn't written anything down yet. So the proctor asks, look, do you want to give up? And the student says, no, I've got a lot of answers to the problem. I'm just trying to pick the best one. In the next 60 seconds, he dashes off his answer, and that reads, take the barometer to the top of the building, lean over the edge of the roof, drop the barometer, and time its fall with a stopwatch. Then, using the formula S equals 1/2 AT squared, calculate the height of the building. So the proctor recalled that the student said there were many answers to the problem. So he asked him what they were. And here were some of the student's favorite answers. Take the barometer out on a sunny day, measure the height of the barometer and the length of its shadow, the length of the shadow of the building, and by the use of simple proportion, you could determine the height of the building. Or you could take the barometer and walk up the stairs, and as you climb up the stairs, mark off the length of the barometer along the wall. Count the number of marks, and this will give you the height of the building in barometer lengths. Or you could tie the barometer to the end of a string, swing it like a pendulum,